Today we're going to look at physical versus chemical changes and properties. So physical and chemical changes are just any changes that could happen to a substance. And physical changes in particular are changes that alter the state or the appearance of a substance, but not the composition. So what that means is that the substance appears to be changing, but it's not actually changing its identity. It's still the same thing. So some examples would be like freezing, melting, boiling. Those are all changes of states of matter, like changes between solids, liquids, and gases. And then also dissolving and mixing, which has to do with forming mixtures. So let's take a look at boiling water as our example. So our water starts as a liquid and it changes to a gas form. This is a physical change because notice that we still have H2O, 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. We're not changing the identity of the water, we're just changing the form that it takes. This is different from a chemical change because to have a chemical change, the atoms actually have to rearrange to form a completely different substance. And that happens when substances either burn, decompose, rust, or any other process that could change the arrangement of the atoms. Let's look at rusting, for example. Here we have an iron nail, and notice how the iron is depicted here as a crystalline solid. All the little gold spheres are our iron atoms. And so before the nail rusts, we have entirely iron. The nail is just iron. But after the rusting occurs, oxygen atoms, which are the little red spheres, have been incorporated into the chemical structure. So now we have a structure that is different. The atoms have rearranged, so that means that a chemical change has occurred. So when these changes happen, we can determine the chemical and physical properties of a substance. The chemical property is a property that a substance displays when the composition is changed. So in order for a chemical property to be displayed, the atoms actually have to rearrange. And these are things like corrosiveness, flammability, acidity, toxicity. So when something burns, for example, the atoms are rearranging to form something entirely different, a new substance. That's different from a physical property because a physical property is a property that a substance displays without changing the composition. So remember, for a physical change, the substance appears to be changing, but it's not actually changing its identity. So a physical property is a property that is displayed while the substance maintains its original identity. So these are things like odor, appearance, color, melting point, boiling point, and density. Color is really tricky though. We want to pay very close attention to that one because even though color itself is a physical property, sometimes a color change can be indicative of a chemical change that is occurring. So we just have to be very careful when we're looking at color. So now I have a practice activity, and the practice activity is to sort all of these different examples into physical and chemical changes. Go ahead and drop your answers into the comments section, and we can discuss it as a group in class.